Hello, welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Lee and I love to yap about all things books, which is why I am going to attempt to finally start a booktube. I have been a huge YouTube fan and lover throughout high school, college, and I've tried to start YouTube channels a few times, but nothing has ever really stuck. But I've been posting on TikTok and Instagram some of my bookish content, and I've just been really craving having a place to talk longer about the books that I'm reading. So I'm finally making a booktube. I'm hopefully going to post every Friday and we'll see how long I can keep it going, but fingers crossed I can do it all year. So for my first booktube video of 2025, I'm going to start out with my favorite book from every month that I read this year in 2024. So starting off with January, we have Powerless by Elsie Silver. This follows Jasper and Sloane. It is the third or fourth book in the Chestnut Springs series, and it is my personal favorite from the Chestnut Springs series. I love cowboy romances and I love this series so much, but I'm also a hockey romance girl, so the fact that Jasper is a combination of both is so special. I love that so much. I also love his relationship with Sloane. This is a cowboy romance, childhood friends, childhood crush, two lovers, and it starts off with Sloane leaving a very toxic relationship and engagement that Jasper sort of starts to help her navigate and work through despite Sloane's father's best wishes. Sloane is a ballerina and Jasper supports her in every way that he possibly can, and this is just such a heartwarming and really special book. I adored it. I ate it up and I tabbed it so much. One of my favorite quotes in this book is from Jasper, and I believe he says it's something about how he wants to breathe the air back into her. Like, he sucked the air out of her and he wants to bring it back in, and I just love it so much. I think the two of them have a really beautiful relationship. And yeah, my favorite book that I read in February would be Bride by Ali Hazelwood. This was my first Ali Hazelwood book. I'm not super sciencey, so I haven't gone into any of her kind of STEM related books, but I do have some on my TBR list for this year. But I did start with Bride and I ate this up. I didn't think I was gonna like this as much as I did, but wow, I love this. This was in my top 10 books also, which hopefully will be a video coming in the future. But this is a vampire werewolf arranged marriage, and marriage of necessity to kind of protect the peace between werewolves and vampires. It follows our main female character Misery and Lo, who is the pack alpha. And Misery has been used as sort of a bargaining chip for the vampires in the past and continues to be in order to maintain peace with other, humans and werewolves. She is also in the process, while she goes into this arranged marriage, trying to find her best friend who has gone missing, and she thinks it is connected to Lo. So that's what this book is about, and I adore this. I love this book. It sparked me wanting to read more werewolf books. I was always a werewolf fan from like Twilight, middle school, all of that. I was never a vampire girly, but I adore werewolves, so this definitely sparked that love to come back, and I have been reading a few other werewolf books this year, so it did the trick. This book doesn't leave off on a cliffhanger or anything, but it does introduce the possibility for a second book to pick up with some of the characters who you are introduced to in this book, and I really, really hope that Ali Hazelwood does that, because I think it would be really, really cute, and I would eat it up if she did. I also adore Lo and his relationship with his little sister, and I love Misery. I just love the way that Lo teaches Misery just how to live, and how that like she can live, and that she doesn't need to always be this kind of bargaining chip for the vampires, and she's allowed to be, who she wants to be. And I think it's just so sweet. I loved it a lot. I can't believe this book was in March, but my favorite book I read in March was Swift and Saddled by Lila Sage. Lila Sage is my favorite author. This is the second book in the Rebel Blue Ranch series, and it follows Wes, or Weston, who is the older brother of our main character from the first book, and Ada, who he hires as kind of an interior designer and kind of person to help him redesign and rebrand the Rebel Blue Ranch guest house. And so we start off with the two of them meeting in the bar in town at the Devil's Boot before anyone even knows who they are, before they know who they are, and they kiss. And that just sparks everything from there. Lila Sage has done it again. This book has a really amazing mental health representation, especially on Wes's side. It is just amazing. It's not my favorite in the series, but I do absolutely adore it. I love Wes. He is a sweet baby angel. I will tease that one of my favorite things in this book is he teaches Ada how to drive a stick shift. Oh my god. Ada is also just so incredibly strong. I love her tattoos. I love her. She is definitely big city girl moving to the country, and I absolutely love that for her. They're both so sweet. The sweet is the word to describe this book. If you're looking for a book that is not too long, small town cowboy romance that just gives sweet energy, you need to read this because it was just adorable. My favorite book that I read in April was actually a digital book, and it is The Sunshine Court. And this is a continuing kind of a spin-off series from the All for the Game series. And you really need to read the All for the Game series before you read this book. So I can't really explain too much other than the fact that if you read All for the Game, you need to be prepared for a lot of trigger warnings, and it's not for everyone. It is definitely a heavy topic, heavy themed book, but I do adore the series. And The Sunshine Court follows Jean Moreau, who is my favorite character from All for the Game. So that is why it is now my favorite in the series, because I just adore him and I love seeing him come to life in this book, and I love seeing more of his character in this book. Basically, just in this kind of short scheme of things without giving too much away, it follows Jean and another side character from All for the Game, Jeremy, as Jean starts to learn to live and Jeremy teaches him how to flourish. And I won't say too much from there because you really need to read All for the Game before you go into it, so I'm sorry about that. I have my notes here about this book because I want to make sure I get all right, but I read from my library The Firekeeper's Daughter, and that was my favorite book in the month of May. This was amazing, and I have it on my list to eventually buy for my physical collection, but it follows Donis as she witnesses a very traumatic murder, and from there she is pulled into and involved in an FBI investigation that is going after a new lethal and mysterious drug that is going around her reservation, and she works together with two FBI agents to try and figure out what's happening and how to stop it from impacting the people in her life. This book was so beautiful. It had suspense, it had heartbreak, it had just, oh my god, I was on the edge of my seat most of the time. It was just incredible. I highly recommend it, and I love, love, love this author's writing style. So I do need to go back and see if she has any other books or if she is planning on having any other books come out, because I really want to read them. June is a little bit of a cheat because it is a tie between two books that actually, when I read them in June, they were ARCs from NetGalley, but they both came out last year, so you can check them out now. The first book is Not in My Book, which came out this December. It is a classic New York Christmassy style rom-com. I wouldn't say that it is specifically a Christmas romance, but it does give off holiday Christmas movie set in New York City. It follows Rosie and Aiden, who are, I would say, academic rivals to lovers. They are both getting a master's, I believe, or they're in college, but either way, they're in a college course on creative writing, and they keep butting heads. So their professor decides that they have to write a book together in order to learn how to get along. And she loves romance and she writes romance, and Aiden is everything but a romance book writer. And it is just such an amazing and really unique book. I love Katie Holt's writing. And I think the most interesting thing about this book is the fact that it's them writing a book in a book, so you get little pieces of it, but you're also watching them really develop and fall in love with their relationship and figure out where they stand on things. And I just adored it. It was so classically New York at Christmas, and that is one of my favorite things. My tiebreaker book in this series goes a little bit farther back in the year to Halloween. This is A Dark and Secret Magic by Wallace Kinney, and I cannot wait to read more books from Wallace Kinney. This book specifically is a Hades Persephone meets practical magic book, and I absolutely adored it. It follows Kate, who is a hedge witch, as she tries to figure out what she's doing after her mom has passed away very mysteriously. And Matthew, who does forbidden magic, has returned to her town and is helping in his own way to get Kate to figure out her family's secret behind their magic. And I can't really say much from there other than that I really love both main characters. I loved the mystery. I loved the suspense. This was one of my favorite Halloween books, and yeah, I just highly recommend it. I'm gonna definitely have it on my list of like kind of witchy Halloween reads, but I thought this was so well done for a witchy magic book without making it be too stereotypically witch of a book. I feel like a lot of Halloween witchy books lose me because they are kind of just stereotypical. Like I always want like a little bit more, but this felt very unique. It was twists and turns, and I just adored it. I ate it up. Whew. Okay, here we go. July. If you are a Korean drama fan, if you like Korean historical dramas, then you need to read A Crane Among Wolves. This is my first book from Junher, and I have to say she is now one of my always buy authors. I already had her other book, The Red Palace, on my TBR, but I read this one first because I saw it at my Barnes & Noble and I decided to pick it up. But this was so good. This follows Isul, who is 17, and from what I've understood from seeing the author's Instagram page, this is inspired by real historical events. So her sister is taken by the king, and the king at the time in Korea was also doing this, where he was taking young women from their villages and forcing them to be his concubines. And he had about 100, maybe more than that, young women and women who were forced to live in the palace. So we follow Isul as her older sister has been taken by the king to be one of these women, one of his consorts, and she is trying to steal her sister back. Then, while she's in the process of that, she's very sheltered. She was a rich girl. Her parents were killed during a lot of political unrest in the country, and so she has now left her uncle's house and is now sort of living in a world she doesn't know, and she meets Prince Daehyun, who is the king's younger half brother. Daehyun is trying to catch a murderer who is kind of on a killing spree, and specifically killing people close to the king to antagonize him. And so the two of them come together, and he's trying to convince Isul to stop looking for her older sister, and she tries to convince him that she can help him catch this murderer. So you've got a lot of things going on at once. This is a beautiful romance. I love Korean dramas, I love Korean history, and so this was right up my alley. And the fact that this is based on real events, chef's kiss. There is a moment at the end of this book, though, I will say, that ripped my freaking heart out, and then the author put it right back in, and I adore this. I adore reading their romance and the two of them and what they're, just everything about this. It has suspense, it has drama, it has murder, it has just everything. It was so good. It was so good. I'm gonna combine August and September because I read the first book in the series in August, and then immediately at the beginning of September picked up the second book because I could not wait. I couldn't wait. I got the first book through my library and immediately had to go buy it and the second book because this has become my all-time favorite fantasy series. It has beat out Caraval, which is shocking for me, but it is the Shepherd's King duology. It starts with One Dark Window and then you go straight into Two Twisted Crowns. I would recommend you have both on deck and on standby if you are going to start this series, but it follows Elspeth, I think I'm saying that right, and it is set in the town of Erie, and Erie is surrounded by this kind of dark mist and a plague. Elspeth was supposed to kind of be exterminated because as a child she had the plague and her family hid her and helped her survive. In this world, there is also a sort of tarot card magic system where if you touch the tarot card or if you're holding it, you take on the power that is in that card of the deck. And each card has sort of different meanings. And some cards there's doubles, some cards there aren't. And so Elspeth has touched the Nightmare, and the Nightmare card has quite literally come into her body. The Nightmare card is her uncle's card, and nobody knows that she has this beast living inside of her until she meets Raven Yu of the Yu family, who are closely connected to the king. But his younger brother has the plague, and they are in the process of trying to save him. So you kind of follow the two as they meet and decide they are going to work together to collect all of the cards and take down the king. I can't really say too much more than that with this series, and I hope I haven't given anything away. If I have, I'm so sorry. But this magic world, this everything, the writing, Rachel Gillig is a new author for me who wrote these books, and I'm obsessed. She's about to come out with a new book this year, and I can't wait for it. I'm counting down the days because her writing is so beautiful. It hooks you in, it keeps you captivated, and it's just so gorgeously done. I also think with this series, she did a really good job of not having it be predictable. There were times where I thought I knew what was going to happen between these two books, and then something would happen and completely throw it out of the water, and I would be right back on the edge of my seat trying to figure out where we were going next with the story. It's so absolutely amazing. Raven Yu is one of my favorite fantasy book characters. I just adore him. Okay, going into October into a Halloween adjacent kind of book. Similarly to Not in My Book, Hannah Bowman Young's Out on a Limb has a start at a Halloween party, but it's not exactly a Halloween book. Now, I love Hannah Bonham Young. I read her book Next of Kin and absolutely adored it, but I was a little nervous starting this because it was extremely hyped up on TikTok and Instagram. It lived up to the hype. Bo is everything and more. Win is so sweet. Our two main characters meet at a Halloween party at at Win's best friend's house. She is a pirate, he's a pirate. They meet, they have a one-night stand, and Win gets pregnant. Now, if you don't like the pregnancy trope, I personally do, but I can see why a lot of people wouldn't like it. But this highlights so beautifully the ups and downs of pregnancy and the fear that can come along with pregnancy that I think a lot of accidental pregnancy books don't talk about. Win goes on a journey of trying to figure out, am I ready to be a mom? Is this what I wanted? Do I want to do this with someone who I don't really know? You know, who are we together? Are we going to be good parents? And you see them start to figure out who they are together and separately, and it was just so beautiful. And the representation in Hannah Bonham Young's books is always amazing, and I really appreciate that. This just had me tugging at my heartstrings in every beautiful way possible. Bo is the biggest sweetie, and he just wants to take care of Win and encourage her to shine and be the star that she is. And I I don't want to give anything away, but I could definitely talk about this for hours in more detail just because I love these two characters so much. November is a very special month for me because not only is my favorite book yet another Lila Sage book, but I met Lila Sage in November at her book tour for Lost and Lassoed, and I got my book signed. So that was super special for me. This is the third book in the Rebel Woo Ranch series, and it follows Emmy, the main character from the first book's best friend, Teddy, and her older brother, Gus. So this is Gus Ryder and its little sister's best friend, which is so funny to me because if you read the first book in this series, it is older brother's best friend. And there's a whole thing in that book with Gus not being happy about their relationship. So I would go back and read that book before you read this one. But Teddy is Emmy's best friend. She has been working at a clothing store in her town and trying to figure out what is she going to do with her life. Her dad has a heart condition, and so she lives with him and helps take care of him. Teddy is loving her job working at the clothing store in town until the owner decides she is going to sell it, leaving Teddy without a job at the start of the summer. Moving over to Gus, he is running the whole ranch other than the actual kind of hotel B&B that Wes is in charge of. He's more in charge of the horses, any cattle, any haying, any of the actual farm work, and Emmy runs the riding school that they have on the farm. And Gus has a daughter, Riley, with they weren't really ever in a relationship, but with Cam, and Cam is gone for the summer. She's a lawyer. She's away for a kind of special training as a lawyer. And so Gus is having to single parent for the first time since the two of them have been co-parenting. And sadly, he can't do it all, and that's really hard for him. So everyone recommends that Teddy step in to watch Riley on the days and times that he can't. The only problem is Gus cannot stand Teddy. So this is a sort of, I don't want to use the word enemies because I think of enemies as more as like two countries in a fantasy book enemies. I'd say this is more of a dislike. Two lovers. It is so sweet. I feel like I'm a love child of Teddy and Gus. Teddy is at a point in her life where she doesn't know what she wants to do. She feels incredibly behind by all of her friends and where they are with their achievements, and she is struggling to figure out what she wants to do and feels like she's running a race. And then you have Gus, who just wants to help everyone and just wants to take care of his family, and he can't do it all. And he's learning that he can't do it all. And this is just, again, another amazing Lila Sage book where the main characters talk about their feelings, the main characters talk about their struggles, and I adore it. Teddy is a fiery redhead with a big personality, and Gus is a grumpy cowboy with a mustache, and I don't know what more you could want. If you've read Heartless by Elsie Silver, it is very similar in the sense of single dad nanny, but I feel like I liked this one more, and I know that's probably a controversial topic because I know everyone loves Cade. I just liked Gus more. I think Gus is grumpy, but he has such a big heart, and he's a secret softie, and he's also secretly really funny, and so Teddy brings out this other personality in him, and he then continues it with his family, which is what I really loved about this book. Whew, here we go. Last month of the year, December. This was a really hard decision. I'm going based off of the list of books that I had finished reading by the time I had posted my Instagram and my TikTok about this. My bonus book for that at the time was Quicksilver, which I hadn't finished. Now, since then, I have finished Quicksilver. I absolutely adore it. It's an incredible fantasy book. I don't want to make it my favorite book of the month just because I want to see how the rest of the series plays out before I make a decision like that. So my favorite book that I read in December was Daydream by Hannah Grace. This book had a lot of opinions around it. So I did not read it when it first came out. I kept putting it off. And then one of my best friends read it and they were like, it's time, you have to read it. You have to do it. It's really good. You're going to relate to Hallie the way I did. So I was like, okay, fine. Okay, fine. I'll read it. I'll give it a chance. Now, my problem is Wildfire is still my favorite book. That's not going to change. But this is still a 5-star read. I have to say, just overall with this series, because I'm pretty sure this is the last book in the series, I feel like Nate in the first book didn't get a lot of personality. I feel like he was a very bland character, and I feel like Wildfire and Daydream had a lot more depth, I guess, for the lack of a better word, depth in them. I love Henry. We meet Henry in the first book in Icebreaker, and we now see him as captain of the hockey team, and just flat out, he's struggling as captain. He doesn't really know what to do. He feels like he's been pushed into this position. He's having a really hard time dealing with his classes, and he has a hard time juggling it all. Haley comes in and he meets her through Aurora at a kind of book club event that he's just kind of passing through, and he thinks she's gorgeous. And eventually it turns out that Hallie is a good tutor, and so the two of them meet. This has fake dating, tutor situation, and it's just I love Henry. I think he's an incredible character. I don't really understand why people were upset about him as a main character, because he reminded me of the Henry from the first book, and I thought he was great. I loved him. He's a sweetheart. He's super gentle with Hallie, and you know, I think Hallie is every only child older sister who has to take care of the family, and I related to her a lot in her struggle of putting other people's needs before herself, and Henry teaching her that it's okay to say no. I need to take care of me. I need to put my oxygen mask before I help you put yours on. And just the two of them together are really, really wholesome. There was a part of the book that really hurt my heart in a lot of ways, but also made me smile. You see these two characters grow in such beautiful, beautiful ways from start to finish. And I really don't know if there's anything I would change about this book or about this series. I think that Hannah Grace did a really great job, especially since she's not American, writing an American college hockey romance series. And I hope we see more from her in the future. I think she's a really great author, and I've loved every character she's come up with. If you wrote a book about JJ, or a novella, I would be really happy. He's one of my favorite side characters. But yeah, this whole series is a recommend for me. Thank you so much for sitting through this video. I would love to know what some of your favorite books from 2024 were. Were any of these on your favorites list? And if not, were any of these books you'd consider adding to your 2025 TBR? So thank you, and I'll see you next time.